G'day IB psychologists. Many of you already have your flashcards. They've arrived in the mail. So now I want to show you how you can get the most out of them. We're just going to go through 5 simple steps here to make sure you're using your flashcards properly. They're just like any piece of equipment, right? If you don't use them properly, you're not going to get the most out of them. You don't want to go down to the gym and, get all arched back on the bench press here and use the wrong form, wrong technique. You're not going to see any gains. We want to see some gains here. So the first thing you need to do, if you look at the stack of flashcards, right, there's over 100 here. There's actually more than you need. And so especially if you're, say, standard level, there's a lot of flashcards here you won't actually use for the exams. So the first step, go through and filter. Filter out the cards that you don't need. For example, if you're a standard level student, there's key terms here for paper 3 that you would only really use in paper 3, for example, about sampling methods. Now, if you're the May 2021, if you're not doing the exams this year, if you're not doing paper 3, no one's doing paper 3 this year. So actually that card, right, we can just set it to one side, right? So you don't need that one. So step 1, go through and filter. The other things you might filter are the key studies. Right, so you've got 72 key studies here. You're not going to need all of them. In fact, you're only going to need about 30 odd or about 40 odd. I've made the list that come with the digital files that come along with the flashcards that you can use to sort of plan what studies you're going to have. And you can also use the exam revision workbook that comes in the digital files with the flashcards. So for example, you might be looking at, say, Puchalowski here with the rat study and going, you know what, I'm not doing the essay on biology and I'm not doing the high-level extension on animal studies. I've got my Passamani study for the SAQ. I don't need that study. You set it to one side. All right, so you want to go through and filter these flashcards so you've got just the bare essentials. Right, step 2, you need to chunk. Now imagine, right, so I managed to actually narrow down my flashcards to just a little bit over half than what I think I'm going to, than the total pack. These are the ones, by the end of my revision process, I'm going to need to know all of these. But actually, right now, this is still far too overwhelming. There's way too much there for me just to sit down and just to start to try to memorize. So you need to start chunking. I would begin chunking by key terms, and also go by the approaches. So you separate the bio key terms, cognitive, sociocultural, the studies, and the theories. Your bio studies, your cognitive studies, your sociocultural studies. So start sorting this out into little chunks. It's going to seem more manageable, and you're going to go piece by piece, right? If you start revision now, you've got 3-4 months, right? Little by little, that's how you're going to get there. So now I'm left with a far more manageable chunk to sit down and start my revision with. Here I've got just the sociocultural key terms, and you know what? Imagine if I was a standard level student, I'd say, hey, globalization, that's an extension. I don't need that. Now I'm left with one less. But now this suddenly becomes far more manageable, right? I've only got about a dozen terms here, and here I can see a couple of theories. You know what? I'm going to put the theories to one side because I'm not going to study them just now. And here, right, far more manageable. So filter and then chunk. Now I'm actually ready to start using my flashcards. So I would begin by reading and reverse, right? So don't start trying to test yourself before you've actually had a chance to learn the terms. So just go through a couple of times culture and just go through a couple of times just reading them, getting the definitions. And I would first test yourself by going the reverse way. So show yourself the definition and then see if you can say the key term. This is by far the easiest way to test your knowledge of the flashcards. But of course, by the end, you want to be able to make sure you can see the term and say the definition, right? There's no matching in the IB exams. If you're struggling with motivation to sit down and you find this really boring and or you've got a lot on and you can't focus, one thing I really recommend, a little kitchen timer. Give yourself, I tell my students, 15 to 20 minutes each day. Set it to kitchen timer at 15-20 minutes. That way you know you're right, okay, social cultural approach terms, and you give yourself a time limit. See if you can memorize them all in 20 minutes. Just so you know, I memorized one of the Japanese alphabets in about 2 hours a few years ago, the hiragana alphabet, just using flashcards, just using the techniques I'm explaining here today while my wife was cooking dinner. She was awfully impressed, and then I later learned that that was only one of 3 alphabets around Japanese, and I never learned it again. But anyway, it can be done. Just follow these tips. Now, once you've been through the reading and you've tested yourself with the reverse, you're feeling confident, you're ready to test yourself for real, what you need to do, there's a couple of little strategies here that you really must follow. It's important you use 2 piles, okay? And so if I'm just gonna put my camera on my desk here so you can see in a second how I would do this, but you have to have, I know it pile, I don't know it pile. Really important that you test yourself and you wanna make sure you can get it as accurate as possible, the word, right? Culture, A set of related attitudes, beliefs, and values that are transmitted across culture from one generation to the next. A set of attitudes. Okay, right, I'm pretty much good with that one. That would go on my I know pile, right? You put it in that know pile. Okay, then I go here, let's say the next one, cultural dimension. It's about culture, it's like individual, and I know, right? Okay, I don't know that definition. I have to put that in the don't know pile. And you keep going through, right? And so you keep going through, I know, I don't know, I know, I don't know, I don't know. Once you've got no flashcards left in your hand, you pick up the don't know pile and you go again and you repeat the process. No, I don't know, still don't know, right? And then you keep doing it. So, right, no flashcards. You keep doing that until you've got all of the flashcards into the I know pile. Now, what do? You pick them up. Now, it's really important that you shuffle them each time you start again. Now, I've got the whole, my whole little chunk here. Start again. Repeat the process, right? I know it, I know it, I know it, I don't know it. Hopefully, your ratio of know to don't know is going to be increasing, right? So you're going no, no, don't know, don't know. Then, right, you're left with most of them in the no pile, a couple left in the don't know pile, and you just keep going, keep going, keep going, right? What you're doing here is you're spending more time on those that you don't know, right? There's no point going over the ones that you're really confident with as much as the ones you're not confident with, right? And so slowly you are getting the don't know pile into the I know it pile. Now, by the end of your 20 minutes, say, if you're doing, say, 9 or 10 key terms, 20 minutes, that should be enough to get all of those terms down. But that's not going to be enough to remember it the next day. Next day, you come back and you repeat the process, right? I know, I don't know. Once you get to a point where you're pretty much confident and you can get through, say, 10 of these flashcards and it's I know, I know, I know, I know, I know, no problems, then you can start adding a couple of new ones. Possibly, what you might want to do is, okay, I'm going to leave the socio-cultural approach for a couple of days. Now I'm going to start on the biological approach, right? And so you do the biological approach. I know, don't know. Same thing, a couple of days. By the end of the week, hopefully then you can go through biocognitive, social-cultural approach, all the key terms, right? And you're just really fluent with it. But that's the simple process. And then, like, the more confidence you get, the higher your rate of the cards that you know, you're going to have your chunk is slowly going to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Okay, and then until finally you can just sit down with all of the key terms for paper one, and you can go and you can be going, right, I know it, I don't know it, I know it, I don't know it, and you can be going through, say, 20 or 30 at a time, or 30 or 40 key terms rather than just 4 or 5. But that's the key. The key is start small and gradually build up in the numbers. In terms of the studies, couple of points. I'll make a longer video later about how to do these studies, but what I would suggest is when we look at the, and the same applies for the theories, when you look at the amount of detail that we have here on the key studies, far too much to remember right off the bat. So what's the key thing, the most important thing to remember of any study? It's not the name, it's not the year, it's not the aim. No, I don't even think it's the methods. It's the results. The results are the most important thing. So don't try to just remember all of those details in one go. Okay, begin with the results, right? So you see that little bullet point there, results, right? That's what you want to focus on. Start with the results, because from the results, you can deduce a conclusion. The conclusion is really what you want to use to answer the question. From the results, you should really be able to figure out the methods that they were used, and definitely from the results, we can figure out the aim. Right? If the results show there was an effect of this on this, well, the aim must have been to see if there was an effect on this on this. If the results were there was a correlation, well, the aim was to see was there a correlation. So start with the results and then go backwards. Now, what I would suggest is the same thing. Start with the reverse. Here you have the results, and then okay, the average testosterone levels were high in the first 2 groups. Then in the third, aggressive inmates had almost double the testosterone levels of the non-aggressive inmates. Right? That sounds to me like Aaron Krantz, 1974. You don't need to remember the year. Aaron Krantz was it? Right? Okay, the correlation there. Now, do you have to remember the name of the researcher? No, you don't. But I actually encourage my students to know the names of the researchers because it becomes much more efficient to revise. When you say, hey, Aaron Krantz, Bartlett, Loftus and Palmer, or we're doing Stone, Cohen, and when we're talking about it in revision class, I can say, can I use Stone for, can I use She et al, can I use Passamoni? Much easier than having to say, can I use the one where they did the thing and they drank the drink and then there was serotonin? Okay, so I do recommend actually that it can make things a little bit easier if you just remember the name of the research, because now when I'm looking here, correlation between testosterone, aggression of violent criminals, Aaron Krantz, that triggers my brain to then remember the details on the other side. Also, it can make it easier when you are peer reviewing. Okay, I asked my partner, Ehrenkrantz, what were the results of Ehrenkrantz? And then my partner can tell me. Now, I'll make another video later as well about how to study with a partner. Right, there we have it, the flashcards, a few simple steps to get the most out of it. Number one is you want to filter to have just the cards that you need for the exams. Use the digital resources that you get, the exam revision workbook, to plan what studies you're going to use for each topic. Also use the detailed guides here that I include about how you can answer all the exam questions and which studies are the best or which ones I recommend for each topic. Then once you've filtered, you want to start chunking, okay, and do a little bit often and slowly increase the size of your chunk. Don't try to do everything in one go all the time. It'll be too overwhelming and you'll get too stressed. Little kitchen timers are helpful too. Then what you want to do is just start with the reverse, right? So read the definition first in the term or the studies, read the results, figure out what the study was, and then you just simply rinsing and repeating with the two piles. Can't stress that enough. The two piles, know it, don't know it, really important. And you go through that process of slowly, anything you don't know goes in that pile until you shift everything over here, and then you shuffle and you go again and again and again, right? Creating memories is about repetition and rehearsal. You know that from the multi-store model, or at least you will after you use the flashcard on the multi-store model. That's working memory. Multi-store model, you'll get it. All right, and then it's, you just keep going, increase your chunks. Now, I can assure you it's going to be really stressful and tiring and frustrating in the beginning, but the more confidence you get and the more time you spend on this, I actually think, hopefully, the more you'll enjoy it and the more you'll get out of it. All right, best of luck.